Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to day number 13 of this reading. Let's see now, it's Monday the 14th, and we are now in the 13th out of 22 readings, so we're making our way along nicely. We've entered into a transition in the book of Isaiah. We left off in chapter 36. The representatives of the Assyrian Empire had met with the advisors to King Hezekiah. They said, you need to submit to us, form an alliance with us, come under our authority, or else. And the advisors, the cabinet to the king of Judah, they tore their clothes in an effort of mourning, of distress, of grief, and they went to tell King Hezekiah about this. And that's where we pick up our 37th chapter today. We read 37, 38, and 39. You'll note that this is more narrative, these few chapters, than some of the other sections, and it's a little more, it's a little less of the judgment side, a little more optimistic. So when the messengers told Hezekiah what the Assyrian king had said, he tore off his clothes and he put on sackcloth. He went in a posture of mourning. He went into God's temple, and there the priests within the temple, they're in sackcloth as well. And they're going to send a message to Isaiah. And Hezekiah is basically, this is the time when it looks like things are going to get bad. You've been talking about God. You've been asking me to trust in God. Now, let's hope that God is going to come through. And so when Isaiah hears this, he responds and says, God says, don't be afraid. The Assyria, they are insulting me, but I'm going to take control. And I'm going to show them that I mean business, essentially. As the chapter continues, the Assyrians are going to, one more time, send a message back to Hezekiah saying, don't trust in your God. If you think that you can trust in your God, you're going to be disappointed. We are mighty with force. No one can stop us. And once again, Hezekiah, he receives this message, and he goes into the temple and he seeks out God, and he's praying to God for safety and protection for his people, for his land. And here, we can appreciate on some level, some way, shape, or form, the dilemma, the heartache that Hezekiah, head of state, is going through. Concerned about his people, a weaker people, as, throughout in the biblical narrative, Israel's history, they were always a weaker, a lesser people, historically less significant. And so, in response to Hezekiah's second trip to the temple, we find here in this 37th chapter, beginning with verse 21, we find God's response, and it's a very poetic response. Let's see, what was I going to say? Again, within the book of Isaiah, there's this idea that whoever the proud are, wherever they're going to be found and located by God, they're going to be humbled. That's a theme contained throughout Scripture. And however this happens, and in whatever way, shape, or form, it's written, the angel of the Lord goes out and kills 185,000 troops in the Assyrian camp. And so they got up, and it was all corpses. One thing about some of the numbers that we read in the Hebrew Scripture, We are uncertain, scholars are uncertain, I should note, exactly how some of the numerology is supposed to be interpreted. There's some of the linguistic elements of the Hebrew numbers that are uncertain sometimes. And so, the 185,000 would have been more than would have likely have been in the entire Assyrian army. And so sometimes the numerology is uncertain, the way we interpret and understand the Hebrew. But nevertheless, here we see the king Sennacherib of Assyria. He got away from camp. He went home and stayed in Nineveh. And he went into his temple. And here his own sons struck him down with their sword. And so, for that king, Sennacherib, it ends very, very poorly. He was the proud one. He was the boasting one, trying to intimidate. And what we see is God doesn't like human intimidators. We find it throughout this book, and we continue to find it in this chapter. So what would we expect from Hezekiah going into chapter 38? He's excited. The God is speaking back and forth to Hezekiah in a different way than we found earlier in this book. It was all judgment. Now God and Hezekiah are conversing through the prophet. Hezekiah is relieved, and he gives his song of thanks, which is again, it's more of the optimistic poetry. Right. Then in chapter 39, now that the Assyrians are out of the way, the ones to worry about are the Babylonians, the real power that is rising up. And so the Babylon sends its messengers to Hezekiah. They come bringing gifts, and they are likely expecting certain kings to create a treaty and surrender and submit and come under their authority before they take the land by force. What is happening is Hezekiah, he gives them something of a tour of the storehouse, the precious metals, olive oil, and the whole armory. And Isaiah hears about it and comes and asks what it is these Babylonians wanted. And here's Isaiah with the prophecy. Isaiah says, "The time is coming when everything you showed them, all of your wealth and riches in your palace, is going to be carried away to Babylon. Nothing's going to be left. Even some of your own people are going to be taken away and made eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon." And that way, having their manhood stripped away. That everything is going to be taken from them. It's within the social scale of that world. Men were at the top, but eunuchs were considered very low. And so their demasculation is going to be quite extreme. All right, well, happy Monday to everyone. I'll leave off the video here and see you all tomorrow. Thank you for continuing now and this third week of joining with me. It's makes my heart glad that you are continuing with this, and I hope that you are starting to enjoy the direction that this book is taking.